Hello everyone, it's Miss LaChance and I hope you're enjoying your summer so far. As promised, I will be posting read-alouds on this YouTube channel this summer, and the book I will be reading is The Wild Robot Escapes by Peter Brown. Over the last 2 months of our school year, we read the first book in the series called The Wild Robot, and it was a huge hit. So to start off this video, I wanted to give a quick summary of the first book in the series, The Wild Robot, just to remind you of what we read in order to get our brains ready for the second book, The Wild Robot Escapes. So, as we all know, this book series takes place in the future, as we learned in The Wild Robot, where humans use robots to do their work for them. And in the first chapter of the book, there is a cargo ship traveling across seas with a bunch of robots, and a storm causes the cargo ship to crash and most of the robots to break and become defective, except for one robot. A seagull lands on the top of this robot, and it actually clicks a button used to power up the robot. And the robot introduces herself as Rosum Unit 7143. We all later learned to refer to her as Roz. At first, Roz finds it difficult to relate to the natural island environment she finds herself in, but she quickly adapts to the island lifestyle and learns to communicate with the animals around her. The animals find her scary at first, but they quickly learn that Roz is a friendly robot just trying to do what they are all trying to do on the island, which is survive. Roz builds friendships with the animals on the island and even takes on the role of being a mother to a gosling named Brightbill, who lost both of his parents tragically before he hatched. In the last few scenes of the book, 3 more robots arrived on the island, claiming they are going to retrieve the robot parts that were never sent to their destination. Roz and the animals put up a fight to try and defeat these other robots, as Roz has come to know this island as her home. Roz soon realizes that if she doesn't leave in the airship with the other robot, more robots will come to the island and cause more harm to her friends and family and her home. So in the end of the book, Roz says her goodbyes to her friends and family and heads off in the airship in order to protect the ones that she loves. Now that leads us to the second book of the series, The Wild Robot Escapes. Today we will be reading chapters 1 through 5. I will be making some comments and asking some questions throughout the video, so if you are interested in interacting with me about the text in the comment section, please feel free to comment. So let's now jump into chapter 1 of The Wild Robot Escapes by Peter Brown. I cannot wait to start this book, and I hope you're excited as well. So let's go ahead and get started. Chapter 1 is called The City. I know we read in the back of this book, The Wild Robot, in the first book in the series. I know we read the first 4 chapters of The Wild Robot Escapes. So I will be rereading those again today in today's video, and then I will also be reading chapter 5 as well. And then in the next video I will be posting will be chapters 6 through 10. So without any further ado, let's go ahead and get started with chapter 1, The City. All right. Our story begins in a city with buildings and streets and bridges and parks. Humans were strolling, automobiles were driving, airships were flying, robots were hard at work. Weaving through the city streets was a delivery truck. The truck knew where to go and how to get there, all by itself. It pulled up to a construction site and automatically unloaded some crates. A few more turns and it unloaded more crates down at the docks. The truck zigged and zagged across the city, delivering crates as it went, and then it merged onto a highway. Cars and buses and trucks were cruising along the highway together, but as the delivery truck continued, the traffic became lighter, and the buildings became smaller, and the landscape became greener. With nothing but open road ahead, the traffic accelerated to its top speed. The landscape outside was now just a bit of a green blur, occasionally broken by a flicker of gray as a town flew past. On and on the delivery truck went, racing over long bridges, shooting through mountain tunnels, gliding down straight stretches of highway until it started to slow. It drifted from the fast lane to the exit lane, and then it rolled down a ramp into a farm country. Clouds of dust billowed up behind the truck as it drove past fields and fences. In the hazy distance, enormous barns loomed above the plains. The air was thick with the smells of soil and livestock. Robot crews methodically worked the crops and fed the animals and operated the massive farm machines. A hill gradually climbed into view. The hill was crowned with trees and white buildings, another farm. But this one was smaller and shabbier than the rest. Out front was a crooked sign that read, Hilltop Farm. Wheels crunched on gravel as the delivery truck rolled onto the driveway and up to the top of the hill. It stopped beside the front porch of the farmhouse and dropped its last crate to the ground. Then the truck drove away. So here we have the scene of the truck driving on the road. You can see all the dust in the back. Reader, can you guess what was tightly packed inside that crate? If you guessed a robot, you're correct. But this was no ordinary robot. It was Rosum Unit 7134. You might remember her old life on a remote wild island. Well, Roz's new life was just about to begin. And here we have chapter 2 called The Crate. Woof, woof, woof! Inside the farmhouse, a dog was barking and scraping at the front door. When the door finally opened, the dog scurried out and bounced down the porch steps. And then a man appeared. The man walked with a limp and slowly made his way down to the crate where the dog was sniffing around. He unlatched the top of the crate and it swung open on its hinges. Packing foam was tossed aside, restraining cords were unfastened, and there was Rosum Unit 7134. Her lifeless body sparkled in the late day sun. The man reached down and pressed an important little button on the back of the robot's head. Click! Chapter 3 is called The Robot. Here we can see Roz coming out of her crate. I wonder if she'll be anything like she was in the past book. All right. The robot's computer brain booted up and her programs began coming online. Then she automatically stood, stepped out of her crate, and started to speak. Hello, I am Rosum Unit 7134, but you may call me Roz. While my robotic systems are activating, I will tell you about myself. Once fully activated, I will be able to move and communicate and learn. Simply give me a task and I will complete it. Over time, I will find better ways of completing my tasks. I will become a better robot. When I am not needed, I will stay out of the way and keep myself in good working order. Thank you for your time. I am now fully activated. So, as you can see in chapter 3, we are introduced to this new version of Roz, or should I say it's kind of going back to the old version of Roz before she adapted to her life on the island in the first book. As you can see, she's going back to talking in her robot voice rather than talking in her friendly voice that she used with the animals to make them from not being so scared of her. So that is one difference so far. Let's move on to chapter 4 called The Family. Welcome to Hilltop Farm, Roz. My name is Sharif. You belong to me now. Roz studied the man with her softly glowing eyes, and in a robotic voice, she said. "Hello, Mr. Sharif." "This old fella here is Oscar." Mr. Sharif scratched his dog's head. "You won't see much of him. Oscar spends most of his time sleeping in the house." "Hello, Oscar," said the robot. A goofy grin stretched across the dog's face, and he let out a happy yelp. Mr. Sharif pulled a small computer from his pocket. He tapped the screen and brought up a map of Hilltop Farm. "There you are, Roz," he said as the robot's electronic signal appeared on the map. "You'll be working all over this farm, and now that you're in the system, I can always see right where you are." "What would you like me to do?" said Roz. "You can start by putting your crate in the garage over there. I'll hold on to it in case I ever have to send you back to the factory." Clearly, Roz was designed to take orders because her body automatically did as it was told. She stuffed the packing materials into her crate and carried it into the garage. When Roz returned, Mr. Sharif was watching a school bus winding along the country road. Oscar barked and dashed off as the bus came to a stop at the bottom of the driveway. A girl and a boy jumped out and the bus drove on. In their matching school uniforms, the children looked almost identical, but the boy was a little taller and the girl's hair was a little longer. I'm wondering if they're twins or identical twins. They meandered up the driveway and romped around with their dog until they noticed Roz. I'm noticing that word meandered. They meandered up the driveway and romped around. I'm wondering what that means. Go ahead and use your context clues. Use some of the skills that we have learned over our 3rd grade year. And if you would like to take a guess of what that word meandered or meandering, if you're going to meander up a driveway, what do you think that means? Go ahead and comment in the comments below if you want to take a guess. "A robot," said the girl, running up. "It's about time we got one," said the boy. "She's refurbished," said the man. "She's the cheapest one I could find, but she'll make a decent farmer." "What's her name?" said the girl. "She said her name's Roz." "That's just her starter name," said the boy. "We can give her any name we want. Let's call her Farmbot." "I kind of like the name Roz," said the girl. "Me too," said Mr. Sharif. "Let's leave her name as it is. Roz, I'd like you to meet my daughter Jaya and my son Jad." "Hello, Jaya and Jad," said the robot. The children looked at each other and smiled. "Will Roz take orders from me?" asked Jad. "What about from me?" asked Jaya. "She'll take orders from both of you." "Roz, I order you to do my homework," said Jaya. "Don't waste her time with nonsense," Mr. Sharif grumbled. "Roz is here to do farm work, not homework. Understand?" The children nodded. "Now, I order you kids to bring the dog inside and do your own homework," said Mr. Sharif. "I need to show Roz the farm." Here's a picture of the family here. Mr. Sharif, his daughter Jaya and son Jad, and then the dog Oscar. Looks like a nice little family. Chapter 5 is called The Farm. This will be the last chapter that we're going to be reading in this video today. In the next video, we will be looking at chapters 6 through 10. I hope you're enjoying the start of the book so far. I'm really loving getting to know some of these new characters. Another question I'm going to ask that you can feel free to answer in the comment section below is there is something that I'm noticing that is different about this book already than in the past book, or the first book in the series, The Wild Robot. If you're thinking of the same thing that I'm thinking, and I think you might be, if you're picking up on what we're reading so far, I want you to go ahead down below and comment what you notice, what's different between the characters so far in this book, The Wild Robot Escapes, versus all of the characters and their traits in the first book, The Wild Robot. Go ahead and comment below because I'm noticing a big difference in this book. Chapter 5 is called The Farm. Mr. Sharif turned and shouted, "Come here, Rambler!" A moment later, a pickup truck automatically rolled out from the garage. The truck pulled up to the man and the robot. Its doors opened wide, and they both climbed in. Rambler had a steering wheel, but Mr. Sharif sat back and let the truck drive itself. They followed the driveway behind the house, across the backyard, past the trees and hedges, and suddenly they were surrounded by farm buildings. The buildings were different sizes and shapes, all white walls with gray roofs, and they were so tightly packed together that you could hardly tell where one building ended and the next one began. Some were spattered with mud. Others had holes and loose boards. The entire place smelled like grass and manure. Mr. Sharif pointed out each building to Roz. There was the enormous dairy barn, the milking parlor, the workshop, the machine shed. Smaller sheds were scattered all around. Rambler drove out from the buildings and down the backside of the hill into a wide sweep of farmland. A fence lined this part of the driveway, and behind the fence was a sprawling, rolling pasture, lush with tall grass and a few leafy trees, where a herd of cows was grazing. The cows swished their tails and chewed their cud and followed the truck with their eyes. One of them let out a long moo. "This is a dairy farm," said Mr. Sharif. "So these cows are the queens around here. Your whole world now revolves around them. Understand?" "I understand," said Roz as she stared at a young calf who was staring right back at her. They rolled past the herd of cows, past clumps of wildflowers, past a quiet pond, past birds and field mice and bumblebees. The driveway cut through a row of trees on its way out onto the crop fields, which were flat and square and covered with bright green sprouts. Hilltop Farm was bursting with life, but it had seen better days. Patches of weeds and bare dirt were spreading across the fields. Broken down farm machines and piles of junk were strewn across the grounds. Thick tangles of brush were creeping in from the edges of the property. I love how in this chapter, this author, Peter Brown, is really describing the setting very nicely with some of these adjectives. They drove all the way out to the farthest fields to a little roundabout at the very end of the driveway. Rambler shut off its engine, and the man and the robot sat and looked at the countryside. Far off, where the land met the sky, a train quickly slid along its tracks and disappeared to the north. Then all was still. "This farm needs help," said Mr. Sharif at last. "It's been in my family for generations, and I don't want to lose it. But I can't do farm work anymore, not with this bad leg. That's why you're here. They say Rosum robots can learn to do almost every kind of job, and you'll have to do almost every kind of job on this farm." "I understand," said Roz. "We've had auto machines for ages," Mr. Sharif went on, "but we didn't need a robot until my wife died." Those last words hung in the air for a while. The silence was finally broken by a low rumble of thunder. A storm was approaching. Tornado season was still months away, but in a farm country, any storm could become dangerous. "Let's go home," said Mr. Sharif. Rambler started its engine and drove back up the long driveway. By the time they reached the farm buildings, a steady rain was falling, and the cows were in the barn. "This is for you," said Mr. Sharif, and he handed Roz her own computer. "That controls the farm equipment, and it's got all the information you'll need to work here. Do you know how to use a computer?" "Yes, I know how to use a computer." Roz had never used a computer before, but she instinctively knew what to do. Clearly, the robot was designed to work with technology. "Study up tonight and start farming tomorrow," said Mr. Sharif. "You can stay in the machine shed with the other machines." "Perhaps I should stay in the barn with the cows," said Roz. "My whole world now revolves around them." The man smirked, and he said, "I like the way you think, Roz." All right, so that is the end of chapter 5. And in the beginning of this video, I said that we had only read chapters 1 through 4 in class, either on the last day of school or the day before the last day of school. And I think I was mistaken because I do remember reading that chapter where Roz says that she prefers staying in the barn with the cows. And I remember us having that conversation about maybe the cows might become an ally for Roz, or somebody that she can go to that she trusts. And maybe the cows might help her escape out of this farm and back to her home environment. Just a thought, just an observation that I'm having, and I'm sure some of you guys might be having that same observation. But that is the end of this video today. I hope you enjoyed chapters 1 through 5. Like I said before, I will be reading chapters 6 through 10 in the next video. And if you're interested in commenting about what you think the wow word meander means in the comment section below, I believe the sentence they used in the book was, "The children meandered up the driveway." So there's that word in context for you. And then if you also would like to comment about a big difference you notice about the characters in the beginning of The Wild Robot Escapes versus the characters and their traits in The Wild Robot. Okay. There was a robot, obviously, in The Wild Robot. There were a lot of different animals. There were geese. There were beavers, there were bears, many other different animals. What are some of the characters that we have now in this the sequel of the first book, The Wild Robot? What's the difference between the characters in the two books so far? All right, and with that being said, thank you so much for watching this first video, and I'm looking forward to seeing you in the next video for chapters 6 through 10 of The Wild Robot Escapes. Have a wonderful rest of your day, and I'll see you next time.